A warm welcome on our side. I was advised by my colleague coordinating this webinar to wait a couple of minutes before we initiate the session, so we give opportunity to other colleagues that registered to join us. I start with a very warm welcome. You see that I'm joined by my dear colleagues here on the screen. I'll do a short introduction just after this. You can see by our faces our enthusiasm with this session as we are kickstarting the promotion of this important program. And we are so very happy to have you here. You will see that we will be supported by our colleague Ana Moreira in the chat, where you'll be encountering also other relevant information about the program, about our speakers, and you'll see also in the screen a Q&A box where you can start asking your questions. Then as we move along to the roundtable or to the exchange between our esteemed guests, you can also pop up questions directly on the Q&A box. And we will encourage you to do so. We'll do our best to respond to as many as possible with the time we have. I see 2 minutes after in my clock, so I want to start by welcoming everyone to our first look webinar on this program. My name is Alexandra Severino. I'm a program coordinator at UNITAR. I also have the pleasure of serving as subject coordinator for this program on UNITAR's side of the partnership. It's a real pleasure for me to be moderating today's session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the webinar. We're really excited to be here with you and to share our new program with you. Just by way of introduction, I'm Dr. Alan Watson from Loughborough University in the UK. I am the Director of Studies for postgraduate programmes in the School of Social Sciences and Humanities, and I've been fortunate enough over the last few years to work closely with colleagues at UNITAR to develop this exciting and important and timely programme. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to provide some key information about the programme, its aims and how it's run and what you would study if you joined us. And if anything's not clear or you do have any questions, just to echo Alex to say, please do use the Q&A feature. A small bit of background before I get into just a few key points. So this is a fully online distance learning programme that's delivered collaboratively between Loughborough University and UNITAR, drawing on specialisms from across the two organisations to give you a really exciting suite of specialist modules at the nexus of energy, climate change and humanitarian challenges. I'll say a little bit more in a moment about what you will study on the programme, what the programme looks like, but we have a few kind of key pieces of information to run through first up on the screen. The most important of which is possibly the application deadline, which for international students applying to study is the 25th of August 2025. It's a slightly later deadline if you happen to be applying from the UK. And the programme itself, the first week of teaching, will begin on the 29th of September. So coming along really quickly, we're very excited to get started. The qualification that you would be getting on from successfully completing the programme is a Master of Science, which is awarded from Loughborough University, obviously in collaboration with UNITAR. And as I've mentioned, this is a 100% online web-based learning programme, which will have both synchronous elements, that's moments where we're online all together live through Teams and web platforms, and lots of asynchronous activities for you to do kind of behind the scenes outside of those class activities. The programme is offered on a 2 or 3 year basis. The only difference in those modes of study is where the dissertation sits, and I'll talk about that in a little while, but there's options for you to wrap it up in 2 years to do the dissertation in the 2nd year, or if it's more flexible for you to do the dissertation in the 3rd year outside of the taught modules. And the programme will be delivered in English. Next slide, please, Anna. That would be great. Thank you. Great. Okay. So in terms of entry qualifications, strictly speaking, it's open to those with an undergraduate qualification, which in the UK would be 2-2, or its international equivalent. We're fairly open in terms of undergraduate backgrounds, where we feel they are broadly applicable to the topic of the programme. So if you're not sure, please get in touch and talk to us about what you might have done in undergraduate backgrounds. It's also really important to note, though, that we will consider various forms of professional experience in lieu of qualifications. You might have both, you might not. But if you're a professional working in the area of energy, climate, humanitarian, and sustainable development, again, please do talk to us, because we can take professional experience in lieu of those qualifications. And we're really keen to have professionals working in those areas study with us on the programs, including staff from NGOs, for example, who are doing applied work in these areas on the ground in fragile or conflict affected regions. Policymakers, humanitarian responders, and climate resilience specialists. And I know there are possibly a few people on the call who have connected with us in LinkedIn over the past week, and I've seen a lot of people who are out there applying, doing applied work in these areas. So we're really excited to have you with us. What will you learn? Well, hopefully a whole series of different skills and knowledges. One of the most important ones on the programme actually is going to be skills in applied energy systems. And we have a Professor Ed Brown from Loughborough on the call today, who say a little bit more perhaps about this in a little while. Our applied energy system modelling is very much a kind of applied real world example. So it's part of systems for analysis and models that are being developed currently at Loughborough as part of our STEER Centre, where STEER stands for Sustainable Transitions, Energy, Environment and Resilience. And you'll be applying models that are currently being used internationally by governments, NGOs, and that includes the United Nations and the World Bank. Oh, sorry, Anna, could we flick back one slide? Is that okay? It seems to be, thank you. Alongside that, we'll be doing some kind of conceptual and policy work, looking at global policy landscape in climate, energy, humanitarian affairs. As you might expect of an academic programme, some critical interdisciplinary thinking involved in tackling the complex global crisis where these three issues are coming together. And lots of kind of real world project-based case study learning that's grounded both in the academic specialisms from Loughborough and field practice, brought especially by our colleagues at UNITAR. Thanks, Anna. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so what will you study? Well, I haven't got time, unfortunately, to go through every module on the programme in detail, but here we've got a few sort of tasters. So these would be the modules that you would study if you joined us in year one. So a master's degree in the UK is 180 UK credits. 60 credits of that is made up by the dissertation, and the remainder 120 in taught modules. So just a few that I'll run through just very, very quickly here to give you a taste. So semester one, year one, you have a module called Climate Futures, and that module is all about understanding alternative climate pathways and how students might use data and tools to define and, importantly, communicate those probable climate futures that we're facing as a society. We have humanitarian development and climate policy, which is all about an in-depth understanding of the complex interrelationships between humanitarian action, development strategies, and climate policy. Rethinking peacekeeping, where students will explore contemporary challenges and theoretical frameworks and policy orientations that shape our responses to conflict and crises. And economic modelling and policy for sustainable development, which is all about applied modelling, which focuses on greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptations in the energy sector. And it's about giving students a hands-on experience of some powerful open source energy modelling tools. So year one, those would be the modules you would study over 2 semesters, and there'd be another set of 4 modules that would be placed in year 2 of studies as well. Just quickly to say something about the dissertation. The dissertation's a really, really important part of studies. It will be preceded by a research design module to help you prepare for the dissertation. And then the dissertations uniquely are going to be co-supervised by a colleague from Loughborough and a colleague from UNITAR. And we'll be inviting all sorts of different projects, some of which might be academic, conceptual and theoretical, and others which might be much more applied and kind of field-based. So lots of options to do interesting work there. Yeah, and then finally, again, just thinking about one of the beauties of the distance learning programme is about flexible delivery, about having a part-time structure that will work for students who are doing other things alongside perhaps. So the beauty of the distance learning format is that flexibility to study within your own time. Having said that, we're really super keen to make sure within that distance learning space that there'll be some cohort building, that you'll get to know other people on your program. So there'll be lots of opportunities for group work, to study case studies together, to look at practical tool trainings, and to help you get to know very well the other students on the program, as well as the academic staff that are teaching you. So I think that's it in terms of time from me. Alex, I'll hand back to you if that's okay.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you, Alan. So we hope that you had a short glimpse. As my colleague just said, we cannot go through each module, but of course we'll be providing you with lots of information in the chat and through our websites. I'm now very happy to kickstart a conversation that we hope really gets into the heart of this program. You see Dr. Kotzer and Professor Ed Brown here on the screen. Welcome again, both. And maybe I'd like to start to ask you, and it's a question for both of you. Maybe we can start by Professor Ed Brown for this one, if you both agree. When we look at increasingly complex global challenges, and I think this somehow is in everybody's minds at the time, climate change, energy insecurity, humanitarian crisis, to name a few, why is an interdisciplinary approach no longer optional but essential? And we've been discussing transdisciplinarity a lot in my own team, and it was something we considered as an important element of this program. Professor Ed Brown, please.
Thank you very much. I think, I mean, it is the essence of the program. So you would expect me to say, yes, it's massively important, and it's you cannot really explore the kinds of issues that this program is exploring without having that interdisciplinary perspective. But I think the best way of answering it is from my own experiences. So alongside being one of the two directors of the Steer Centre, for my sins, I'm also the overall research director for a major UK aid-funded programme called Modern Energy Cooking Services. And in essence, the idea of modern energy cooking services is to assess why, after 20 to 30 years of international efforts to address the global challenge over clean cooking, we haven't been successful. I mean, if you look at SDG 7, we often lament the progress on electrification. But if you take that a stage further and look at the other major indicator on modern energy cooking, then the levels are just really, the progress has been minuscule when you think about it. 2.5 billion people globally still lack access to modern cooking fuels. So for access to fuels that they can cook with that won't harm them or the planet, basically. So how do we address that? It's a massively multifaceted issue. It's everything from understanding the cost of electricity, where the opportunities for electric cooking lie, and the possibilities for adding cooking loads onto electrification initiatives like Mission 300, through to the design of stoves, through to the discussions, geopolitical discussions over whether it's more important to invest in decarbonizing our energy systems, or whether the most important thing is to bring access, whatever the cost to the environment. And then also with cooking, it's a highly cultural phenomenon. You cannot talk about cooking without talking about cultures of cooking, differences between countries, differences between different neighborhoods of the same city, for goodness sake. So I think that's really, I think, quite a clear answer from one of the programs that we run, that just with one of these major SDG challenges relating to cooking, you really have to look at this from an engineering, from a geopolitical, from an economics, from a financial, and from a cultural studies perspective, and bringing that all together, obviously, as Alan would remind me, from a geographical perspective too.
Thank you, Professor Ed Brown. Indeed, and also thank you for, in a way, highlighting why we might talk about transdisciplinarity on a very academic basis sometimes, and it's really down to earth. And, you know, with the example you gave specific to food, it makes it so clear. Dr. Kutzer, transdisciplinarity, some words about this important issue from you, please.
I'd like to build on what Professor Brown was saying in terms of, drawing attention to the program. But I would like to highlight exactly the elements, which is that transdisciplinarity is built on the research-informed and the co-productive learning that is going to take place. Just as Professor Brown was mentioning, cooking and in different cities in the same context can be vastly different. So to loop back, the research-informed co-productive learning that can help us to design solutions with real-world impact, but at the same time in an ever-changing world. So to sum it up, what this program is going to allow the learners to go through this rich, informed, co-productive learning where solutions are going to be co-designed, co-created with the community, and that professional capital that they're going to be learning is going to be worth so much in this context of the triple nexus of humanitarian development and the peace framework. The World Economic Forum tells us that by 2050, we're going to have more than 30 million climate refugees. So without us taking an alarmist approach, I really would like to thank the colleagues and Loughborough University for embracing this collaborative partnership, because again, I think we are going to deliver something which also is going to show how two institutions, Loughborough University and UNITAR, can also walk our talk and show how we can collaborate to create real world impact and solutions that are research informed to ensure co-productive learning. Thank you, and back to you, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. And indeed, this is something I've been reflecting a lot too during the development of this program with all of you. How the world's challenges refuse, I think, to stay in neat boxes, and I think you've both highlighted that in a way that makes lots of sense, and highlighted too the need that we have to bring disciplines together if we want real solutions, not isolated responses or shortened responses to complex problems. I would like to pose you another challenge from a reflection perspective. It's also for both of you. Maybe now we start with Dr. Kutzer, just to make it a bit different on the turns. And I wanted to delve into what kinds of skills, capacities, or even ways of thinking must professionals develop to work effectively at these critical intersections, for instance, some of those that you highlighted just now.
I think it is very important to highlight the innovative assessment methods that this program has integrated, because it's directly going to develop the skills of the learners in terms of how to do case study analysis, how to work with data, how to develop policy briefs that can influence law, policies, and practice, but more importantly, to co-create implementation plans by doing the necessary consultative processes. And all of these elements are both based on those real work professional outputs that we need so desperately today. And I want to stay away from the very traditional skill sets, which is subject knowledge, understanding, critical thinking, synthesis, analysis, because all of that's a given. All of that is integrated already at a master level program, but it is those very specific skill sets that are integrated in how we can today prepare individuals to, through the research and the learning, do then have the skills to address the climate, energy, and humanitarian issues that are today ever increasingly interconnected.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kutzer. Professor Ed Brown,
It's a really
focusing on skills and these elements, what are your thoughts?
I think it's kind of being able to pinpoint further down some of the specifics of what I was talking about in answer to the last question. And I think, again, I'm going to use an example. So I think there is a cutting edge understanding inculcated into the program in relation to energy modeling. I think Alan talked about it quite specifically, and the team at the Climate Compatible Growth Program, another UK aid funded program which is based in the Steer Centre, have led a lot of the open source energy modeling that is being increasingly employed by international organizations and indeed by individual national governments. Sometimes that process can seem quite divorced from people's real lives, and indeed learning the techniques can seem very individualized. You learn them as an individual and you learn how to conduct the analysis. But I think what this program gives is the opportunity to look at how the results of different competing models even have been utilized within specific country contexts. So we already run some summer schools with colleagues across the UN and other organizations which work with technicians from individual national governments in going through specific scenarios and feeding data into the models that have been developed and which will be taught at Loughborough. And that contextual material from those summer schools, but also from direct engagement with national governments, allows us to look not only at the specificity of the development of the models themselves and how you undertake those models, but also what are the issues you're going to find as a technically proficient modeler in then applying those models to the particular challenges that face the country that you're working in. I had a conversation this morning with one of my PhD students, and she is looking at the development of models that take a much stronger account of the differential needs of men and women, for example, and for other marginalized groups in society. So in that context, it's bringing an understanding of the different needs of the energy system into how energy system modeling is actually conducted.
Thank you so much for those reflections both. And I was just thinking that indeed, I think some of the questions you both highlighted here in different way guided us a lot while we were building the curriculum, where we kept thinking, what do professionals really need to thrive in uncertainty? There's the uncertainty element that was something we deeply considered, and this idea that it's not only about knowledge, but there was an element of mindset, of empathy, of if we want the ability to connect the dots across the fields that we wanted to integrate. We still have some time before we need to jump into the Q&A part of our session. I'm sure you are also looking forward to it, but I would like to take the chance to ask two more questions, and these ones are specific to each of you. I'll start with Dr. Kutzer and delve into from our institutional perspective, UNITAR's global perspective. How does a program like this support broader goals in capacity building, especially where both humanitarian and climate challenges are accelerating? This is for you, Dr. Kutzer.
Yeah, it's a challenging question. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I think one of the overarching goals of the UN Sustainable Development Goal is leave no one behind. And I think this is important to reiterate that the aim and the objective of this program is really to equip the learners who are going to become influential professionals, and some of them may already be in a management and leadership position, because I've seen so many of the participants who joined us today have already supervisory or leadership functions. And it's to build on that capability to navigate complexity, to integrate diverse perspectives that's going to be learned through the research-informed and the co-productive learning, to integrate then these different perspectives to drive that innovative, inclusive solutions. And let me just conclude also by saying, very often we speak on behalf of communities, and from the UNITAR perspective, it is so important that we amplify the voice of the local communities, because so many of the local communities have really highly effective, sustainable practices, but these are never really highlighted. And in this program, as you've heard, there are so many of these examples that are integrated. So for us, it's to really walk our talk when it comes to leave no one behind. Thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you. Thank you for responding so well to this challenge. And I know we've talked many times about how education can be a catalyst for systemic change. I'm always so happy when you highlight the importance we give to community-based approaches. And I know you've seen firsthand how critical that is in the places we hope to serve the program. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your commitment also with us. We move to Professor Ed Brown for this last question of our reflection part of the webinar, if you want. And I wanted to ask, drawing on your specific research, and you mentioned some points about your specific research already, but drawing on it in a sustainable energy and fragile context, how do you think a program like ours leads to meaningful long-term change on the ground?
You can tell from my in-depth taking of breath that these questions haven't been we haven't been pre-warned on the questions. It's a very difficult question, because I think clearly the impacts are on the students that decide to take this program. We're all already involved in impactful research and delivery of impactful programs. But I think the most important thing is the long-term sustainability of those who work within the institutions that have responsibility for dealing with these challenges within their countries and within their institutions internationally. So I would hope, and I say hope because we have no certainty ultimately about how the programs that we run are embedded within people's lives and their career paths and so on. But the intent of the program is that we provide the kinds of skills that career professionals that are seeking to address these answers and recognize the need for truly interdisciplinary solutions to these questions can bring those skills into their jobs and their career paths over the next 20, 30, 40 years. So education is not the 5-minute, 5-year answer to the question. It's about helping to frame the answers to those questions by the institutions and the governments and the peoples that will determine their futures over the course of the coming years. And if we can be a small part of improving the offering, as it were, and the training of those people, then we'll have done what we set out to do.
Thank you so much for those reflections. I I think I can say that your work and those of your peers has influenced how we think about energy, not only as this element of infrastructure, but as a form of justice, if we want. And it's really interesting to see how you share how that connects to what we are doing here in this program. So thank you so much for the thoughtful reflections. We have a couple of minutes, so I perhaps take this chance to ask you both if there's a specific concluding thought that you'd like to add for this part of the exchange of this roundtable, for those colleagues, participants that are here today and might be thinking about joining us in our community and in this program launching in the fall. Maybe we can start with you, Dr. Kutzer.
I would again highlight the unique skills and knowledge construct that this program will help to facilitate, which is the interplay between the humanitarian action, development strategies, and climate actions policies. And the interconnectedness of these elements is really something that I think is a unique value proposition of this program.
Thank you so much. And there was actually a question in the chat about that. What makes this program unique and different from those in the field? So you responded somehow to that point, we hope. If there are a follow-up question from the colleague that posted that in the chat, please follow up and we'll check it. Professor Ed Brown, any further thoughts for those considering to join us?
I think Dr. Kurtzer said pretty well what I was intending to say, so you beat me to it that time. Actually, do you know what I want to do? I want to take us back to right at the beginning and just say that the vision behind this program was from two very, very special people. Thomas, who is sadly no longer with us, but I think this stands as a testament to everything that he believed in. And Longsang is still with us, but has been affected by long-term COVID. And to me, I think that the impact of COVID also spans across all of these issues. So the health issues are also a fundamental part of the climate, of energy systems, and particularly of humanitarian action. So we have, just in the small group of us that have been developing the ideas, seen very strongly the interconnections between all of those parts, which I think will come across in the way in which the program is delivered.
Thank you so much, Professor Ed Brown. Thank you again for highlighting the contributions of our colleagues that I mentioned at the beginning. I think it's never too much to thank them and to think of them. They were important, integral parts of this process. And thank you also for bringing the additional layer of COVID as something relating to climate and to consider still, although on one hand it seems so far, on the other it seems whenever we are in touch with these cases and other dimensions of it, namely the social dimension of it, still so present. So thank you both so much for the powerful reflections. It's really, I think, inspiring and I think useful for someone that is interested in the program to see how each of your perspectives helped shape the program itself. I take this chance now to also move to answer some of the great questions that kept coming up in our chat from the audience, our audience. And thank Alan. Alan was already responding to some in the chat. You have your responses already, and we have a few ones still to explore. The list is long, so please bear with me. I opened the chat in a maximized window so I can see. We are truly grateful for the amount of questions. I take also this chance to apologize, as we'll probably will not be able to answer to all of them. But I believe our colleague Anna Moreira was posting in the chat all the contact channels you can use. We are here for you. Contact us if there are any questions that are not, responded today due to time constraints. I start maybe here at the bottom, and we have an interesting one. How can we design a scalable, culturally adaptive framework for clean cooking adoption in rural, global Asian communities that fully accounts for undocumented social dynamic and gender-based power structure? I believe, Israr, thank you for the question. This would be more for Professor Ed Brown, considering the points he made about cooking and food. So I would ask Professor Ed Brown to share with us your
I'm
impressions.
just
And I'm
rereading
typing,
the.
yeah,
I'm just
I'm typing
rereading the
also the
question.
questions for
Um,
hosts and panelists to make it easier.
I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer in a couple of minutes like this, and I want to make sure that there's opportunities for there's very specific questions around the course. But I would say in a nutshell, it's the way in which we've worked in the various countries where we've been exploring these questions involve long-term relationship building with organizations and with governments and with communities. I think it also it involves, again, this range of different factors. So I think when we look at, for example, the adoption of electric cooking as one of the major, I think, really innovative solutions within the context of the different types of communities that exist even within one individual country, then it's a matter of understanding what we call the jigsaw of different components that need to come together. So it's about understanding the needs of different communities and the purchasing power of those different communities. It's about understanding the framework within the economy in terms of the tax status of the appliances that will be needed. It's about the supply chain and the development of the supply chain, but it's also about the cultural acceptability and fit of the appliances that are being developed. That will look very, very different in different countries and in different parts of the same country. So I know that's a very kind of generalized answer, but if you're interested in knowing more about individual countries, then do look at the MEX website, where there is a lot of information on the work that we've been doing across Asia and Africa and beyond, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, while I was listening to you, the concept of wicked problem immediately came to my mind, yes. and the complexity of the issue, and it ties well, I think, to the points you both made about transdisciplinarity and how we need to look across so many different angles, and there are no simple answers. And education offers naturally a venue through attempting and working together to find those same answers. Moving along to other question we have here, and it's about the program specifically. So I'll let my colleague, Dr. Alan Watson, respond, and maybe ask you to add something in the case you feel there's something you'd like to add to Dr. Watson's points on how does the program prepare students for high impact careers in NGOs and government. And this is the element of government that I found interesting in the question, because it seems that governments will need to respond to different challenges in a different way considering the current context. So Alan, maybe I'll start with you.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, that's great. My apologies. My Zoom is being a little bit finicky today. If I go anywhere near the chat, I seem to drop out and then come straight back in. So please bear with me. I'm just going to stay away from touching any buttons at the moment while I respond. Thank you for everybody for engaging. Some really great questions, and I think colleagues through the roundtable have really answered why this course is unique. So maybe then to build on that, to say a little bit about the kind of spirit of the program and the delivery. I think there are maybe 2 points, and one of which is about our want for this program to be not just academic, but also very much applied in nature. And I think that comes through in a number of different respects. The first of which is, as Ed has articulated, is the way in which the research that's being undertaken here at Loughborough is is very much applied. It is very much real world. It is out there being used. And so the spirit of the program is to teach you tools and techniques and modeling software and sources of data, which students can then go out and apply in real world situations. As I've tried to pick up in the Q&A, the program is designed for students with a whole range of different backgrounds to come in and succeed. That might include students that already have some element of kind of understanding of the key areas and some element, for example, of kind of technical modeling, some experience in that, and other students who really haven't done that. But just to reassure you that the program is there to help everybody get to the same level and support students to reach the level of competence that's required to pass the program. And I know as well from conversations with colleagues in UNITAR that the staff who will teach on the program from the UNITAR side have some amazing experience in the field in different aspects, again, of kind of applying some of these into the real world. And that application does not just include kind of technical elements such as modeling, but also experience in how we influence policy through our knowledge, how we influence a whole range of different actors, empower a different range of actors, how we speak to various types of organizations in terms of governance. It's really important that with our backgrounds, we have those conversations, that we can influence policy. Please do have a look at the website for STEER, which Eddie's co-director of, and you'll see some of the wonderful work that colleagues are doing in terms of being out there and speaking in really important forums and speaking to people in government and influencing policy. And we bring that experience into the program to help students understand how they too might be out there influencing policy and governments.
Thank you so much, Alan.
I think John Hans might have something to contribute to.
I was going to pass the word, John Hans, because yeah, we know each other well. I knew you would have something meaningful to say about this, and this is why I highlighted the government aspect as well and the need for responses. Over to you.
Thank you. I would also like to highlight the role that the learner will play within the program and the learning process. And that's called peer learning, because, ladies and gentlemen, so many of you will come into the program and you will represent a certain experience, knowledge, policy, and just that rich knowledge and experience that you're going to bring into the program, and that is just going to become such a rich treasure trove of experience and learning from one another, that by the time that you will start working on your dissertation, that is the last requirement of that independent piece of work. There you will then really be prepared and ready to not just do an academic exercise, but that you're going to be able to articulate a really valuable piece of work, be it policy, be it a case study that is going to demonstrate how you have achieved the learning objectives of this program.
Thank you so much for bringing that very important layer. And I think we try to convey also this learner-focused approach. And I think my colleague, Dr. Kotzer, also mentioned, and Professor Ed Brown, in a different way, the element of co-creation and the focus that we have intentionally put on it. So thank you so much. We have now a more technical question that I believe is more directed at Professor Ed Brown. From Colleen. Thank you, Colleen. Will we learn more about MECS in this program? I have been following this vital work on clean cooking and hoping to bring EPCs to my off-grid projects in Africa.
Sorry, could you reset that? I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, for sure I can. Will we learn more about MECS in this program? I have been following this vital work on clean cooking and hoping to bring EPCs to my off-grid projects in Africa. There's some acronyms here.
The short answer is yes. There will be, particularly on the modelling side, there will be opportunities to draw on those experiences. But also, if you're interested in talking further, do just reach out and to me and my team under MEX. There's no need to wait for the course.
Thank you so much, and for offering the extra tool. Now we have also a question from Patrick. I think it's highly relevant because we try to convey how open our program is, also due to its transdisciplinary element and the cross of disciplines. But we have from Patrick the following question. So if someone has a master in renewable energy, would you advise the person to enroll for this program still? Maybe Alan, I don't know if you want to
sorry,
jump.
Alex. In fact, I just finished my reply to that in the chat. Yeah, just to reiterate, really, I think the key point is we have a very open policy in terms of backgrounds, because as colleagues have mentioned, the spirit of the program is very interdisciplinary, and so the program needs to be one that welcomes on students from a wide range of backgrounds. And as John Hans has beautifully articulated, the broader the range of backgrounds our students have, the more interdisciplinary as a program it will be, because of their input, especially into group situations. So it's not, I think, that there is no situation where we would automatically turn down a student and say they're not eligible. What we might do if you were to apply is to reach out to you and say, okay, look, this is your background, this is what the program's about. These are the areas where we feel that you might have to do a little bit of extra work to get up to speed. It might be in the technical elements of modelling, or it might be in some of the more kind of background concepts. We are very, very happy to support students to do that. We are very, very happy to provide resources to students to access ahead of joining the program that we feel might be useful to get people up to speed. So my advice is, don't worry too much about your background. Reach out to us for a conversation about what the program, more detail on the program, and we're very welcome to have that conversation with you.
Thank you so much. And Patrick just came back to us to highlight that the module lineup is so aligned to sustainability. That is very much in. It's so great to read this, I think. And then we have more technical questions about resources from Deb. Hi, Deb, welcome. About access to libraries, and indeed you would have access to both Loughborough and UNITAR libraries to access resources alongside the resources posted in the learning platform. So
yeah,
the
sure.
answer
So
is yes.
I'll maybe start on that, and then colleagues from UNITAR can talk a little bit about the resources. Yes is the answer. I would say that even our students that are based on campus primarily access the library virtually these days. All of the key journals and books and so on will be available to you digitally. And we have a very, very good service whereby if there's anything that we have in the library that you can't access digitally, we can make that available digitally for you. So you've got a huge digital resource available to you through the institutional library. And by enrolling on the program, you'll have access to all of that, just as any other student would. Alex, John Hans, would you want to say something about access to resources on the UNITAR side?
Absolutely. So, Debbie, students who are enrolled in this program will have access through the UNOC, which is the UN Library in Geneva, and you would also have access to all those online resources.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that, John. And also from Deb, and I think it's a pertinent question, as I've noticed there are few people in the audience from the US. Welcome, everyone from that side of the world. And the question is, has any connection been made to the current FEMA modules around climate change and the impact of food distribution post-wildfires and forced climate migration at the local level in the US? So I'll hand over to you, just a preliminary remark on my side, to say that, as my colleagues were highlighting at the beginning, we wanted the umbrella and the lens to be global, in the sense that we would indeed leave no one behind. But the impact of food distribution, the connection with wildfires, forced climate migration movements was something that is very much part of this interconnection we were discussing. But I'll let my colleagues add to what I just said, and some particular angles I might not have mentioned. Alan, would you like to go first? And then I'll hand over to Professor Ed Brown and John Hans, Dr. Kutzer.
Yeah, sorry, Alex. I was just answering some questions in the chat and maybe not following as closely as I should. If I understood, I think, yeah. So if I understood the question correctly, it's very difficult, isn't it, in a world where we are subject to many of the same kind of forces, if you like, but we experience them so differently in so many different places. And this is the challenge of the work that many of us do and many of you do. I think my only response really, well, my response would be twofold. As part of the programme, and as geographers more generally, our tendency is to try to dig down into particular case studies that we feel are kind of revealing and informative about particular instances or particular examples, and to encourage students as part of their independent learning to go away and research other cases. And so very much in the spirit of assignments would be to go away and research different contexts and different case studies that may be meaningful or you have experience of in some way. So that's very much welcome. And John Hans also made reference earlier. The second thing is the dissertation. The dissertation project is very much student led. So if there's something in your line of work or that you are passionate about, or a particular context or a particular community or a particular area of impact, there's an opportunity for you to research in depth and take your learning from the program and apply it to those particular case studies. So John Hans has already kind of, again, articulated the notion that much of the learning as part of this program is very much student led, and we very much welcome student input. You are very much kind of co-learning on the program with you. So that's the spirit. So I hope, Alex, that goes some way to answering the question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. Yes, Professor Ed
Just
Brown.
to add, I think that the question was specifically on the connections to the FEMA modules. I don't feel qualified to say specifically on that. It's others that teach in the areas around that. But so I think that's possibly the reason for the slight vagueness in our responses to that question. It would seem in the areas that I do know about, for example, in relation to the modeling is done at whilst there are particular approaches that are taught, it is done within the context of knowledge of all of the different approaches that are utilized globally. So my sense would be that in this area as well, in terms of impacts on food distribution, forced climate migration, etc., that if there are existing resources in other places, that they would be at the very least signposted, but probably there would be strong connections to and incorporation of those materials in the specific modules. However, I can't 100% guarantee it.
Thank you so much, all. We are heading towards the end, and we'll collect one more question, but just to reinforce everyone, you'll see the contracts throughout. We are really here for you. So if there were any specific questions you wanted to ask, you were not entirely sure how to ask them, or there were different elements, please write to us, and we'll be coming back to you shortly. So we'll end this part, and before I resume on behalf of our team, our session today, there's a question in the chat that I think it's interesting, and that it's a reflection to us as well, I think, the program team, and is whether this is the first of its kind, our master's is the first of its kind, that combining climate change, energy, and humanitarian action, whether we think this is the case.
as far as I know.
Yes, a difficult question, a difficult question to answer in a way, because I couldn't possibly suggest that I know every course at every university. But I would be tended to agree with Ed and say yes. Master's programs, generally, I think try to do something quite specific and quite targeted. And while we do that, I think what's unique about this program, as colleagues have touched upon, is the spirit of interdisciplinarity and the notion that, if you like, if I might call them grand challenges, for want of a better word, need connected, joined up knowledge and thinking to address. And I think the uniqueness of this program comes in that recognition that we can't possibly separate the number of humanitarian crises which we currently face and which we are likely to face in the future, without addressing the broader challenge of climate change, and an understanding that if we aren't to address that issue, then the number of humanitarian crises we're likely to experience in those scenarios in the future will only increase. So I'm minded to say yes. I of course think this is a very exciting and hugely important area of study to equip people to move forward in the future to address these sorts of challenges, both in an applied context and also a policy context, and also an academic context.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kutzer, would you like to add from the perspective of UNITAR? And I think you've touched, both Professor Ed Brown, my colleague Dr. Alan Watson, already touched on the fact that, well, the mapping might show some similarities or titles that, have some elements that might seem familiar or similar if we want. We are in a collaborative partnership to deliver you this program, and that's an important element, and one that my colleague Dr. Kutzer has been focusing very much on. So I would give you the word to also address in terms of UNITAR contribution and why we consider that, it's unique. What we offer is unique.
Thank you so much, Professor Brown and Dr. Watson and Alexandra, for posing this question. I think what makes this program indeed unique and original, and I would agree with my colleagues, with a bit of caution, to say yes, I think it is the first, because what it does, it provides the quantitative and the qualitative elements that helps us to understand the phenomenon and impact of continuous climate changes, and that we can then design the appropriate architecture, if you want, of appropriate humanitarian action and initiatives that then also draws on the element of energy, more effective energy usage, because even when we look at climate change, there are a lot of conflict and humanitarian crises that are driven by climate. So that research-led and co-productive learning, the quantitative and the qualitative elements and the interaction between it, is what makes this program, I believe, unique.
Thank you all so much. I realize we are on time, so we want to be respectful of everyone's commitment to be here and to not extend the session too long. It would be fair. I rushed a bit in my introduction at the beginning. I'm glad my colleagues pick up on thanking our colleagues again for their participation in this process, for also helping us come to this moment today. And I just wanted to take the chance to say thank you on behalf of our team, the program team here, to all of you you that came to listen to us. A special thank you to Dr. Kutzer and Professor Ed Brown for the additional layers of reflection, to giving more insight into what type of dynamics, phenomena, challenges that we consider and that we want to give a response to, at least to some extent. We truly hope that this program resonated with you and sparked something, and we would be truly honored to receive your application and welcome you to a community. I hope you had a sense that this is more than a program team and already a small community. I truly hope we managed to convey that. All the relevant links and resources will be shared with you after the webinar by our colleague Anna. And thank you so much again for being here with us. And we hope to see many of you, most of you, in our first cohort this September. Welcome. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you, everyone. I wish everyone a good morning, evening, afternoon, depending where you are. And we hope to see you soon also in further events we'll organize and in the program in September. Bye, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you very much.